Part 1. The Will That Made Them Smile. The first time my family chose my sister over me, I was 8 years old and standing in the rain with a broken violin case in my hands. The last time, they did it in front of a lawyer. That was the day Grandma Eleanor's will was read. I remember the room so clearly that even now, years later, I can close my eyes and count every person who looked away from me. My father, Charles Whitmore, sat at the head of the table as if the house already belonged to him. My mother, Vivian, wore black silk and pearls, grieving in the expensive way she did everything. My older brother, Nathan, stood by the window with his phone in his hand, pretending he was too busy to care about money while checking the market every 3 minutes. And my sister, Lila, sat between our parents in a cream dress, her hands folded like a painting of innocence. I sat at the far end of the table. That was not an accident. In the Whitmore family, distance was a language. Lila sat close because she was beloved. Nathan stood because he was important. Father sat at the head because he believed every room needed a king. Mother sat beside him because she had spent 28 years choosing comfort over conscience. And I sat far away because I was useful only when there was blame to carry. My name is Mara Whitmore. I was the second daughter, the difficult daughter, the daughter who always remembered too much in family photos. Lila leaned into our parents like a child in a storybook. I stood straight, hands clasped, chin lifted, already learning that if I looked too hurt, someone would call me dramatic. Grandma Eleanor was the only person who never called me dramatic. She called me precise. Mara notices what everyone else hopes she missed. Grandma used to say, "That will either save this family or destroy it." At the time, I thought she was joking. Then she died, and her lawyer placed a black folder on the table. Mr. Julian Pierce was not the kind of man my father liked. He was too calm, too neat, too unimpressed by money that was not his. He opened the folder, removed a sealed envelope, and looked around the room. "Before I begin, Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore instructed me to remind everyone present that this reading is being recorded." Nathan looked up from his phone. "Recorded? Why?" Mr. Pierce adjusted his glasses. "Because she requested it." Father gave a thin smile. "My mother enjoyed drama near the end." "No," I said before I could stop myself. "Grandma enjoyed documentation." The room went still. Mother's eyes flashed toward me. Lila lowered her lashes. Father's smile disappeared. "Mara," he said quietly, "today is not the day." That was another family sentence. Today is not the day. It meant, do not tell the truth where guests might hear it. It meant, swallow this until everyone forgets. It meant, let Lila cry first, and we will decide your guilt later. I looked down at my hands and said nothing else. Mr. Pierce began to read. At first, the will sounded ordinary. Grandma left several charitable donations, a scholarship fund for girls from rural schools, her personal jewelry collection to be cataloged, and her library to the city university. My father relaxed with every sentence. He had expected the main estate to pass to him, and nothing Mr. Pierce read seemed to challenge that expectation. Then the lawyer turned the page. Regarding the Whitmore family residence, known as Ashbourne House, the controlling shares of Whitmore Holdings, the Lake Estate, and the Eleanor Whitmore Private Trust, I leave the following condition. Father's posture changed. Mother stopped touching her pearls. Lila looked up. Mr. Pierce continued, for 30 days following the reading of this will, my immediate descendants and named household beneficiaries must reside at Ashbourne House under the conditions listed in Appendix A during those 30 days. no beneficiary may be removed. Coerced, threatened, financially pressured, medically confined, publicly defamed, or forced to sign any release of claim. Nathan gave a short laugh. What is this, a reality show? Mr. Pierce did not smile. At the end of 30 days, the final distribution will be determined by compliance with the conditions. Father leaned forward. What conditions? Mr. Pierce read the next line. Each beneficiary must reveal, in writing and under recorded oath, any action taken within the past 7 years to alter inheritance documents, conceal family assets, manipulate medical decisions, falsify academic or business records, or damage another beneficiary's legal or personal standing. The room went silent in a way I had never heard before. Not awkward, not polite, afraid. Mother's hand tightened around Lila's. Nathan's phone screen went dark. Father said, "This is absurd." Mr. Pierce continued as if my father had not spoken. Failure to disclose before the 30th day will result in forfeiture of discretionary inheritance and transfer of that portion to the injured beneficiary or to the Eleanor Whitmore Foundation. At the trustee's discretion, Lila's voice came out soft. Injured beneficiary? Mr. Pierce looked at her. That is the phrase Mrs. Whitmore used. Father stood. My mother was not mentally well when she wrote this. She was examined by 2 physicians on the morning she signed. Mr. Pierce said, "Both reports are attached." Mother's face had gone pale. I looked from one person to another and felt something strange move through me. Not joy. Not anger. Recognition. For years, I had felt like the only person in my family who remembered the missing things. The violin competition form that disappeared from my school bag, the scholarship letter that arrived opened, the internship offer forwarded to Lila's email, the necklace Grandma left on my desk that Mother later said had always been meant for my sister, the night Lila fell down the stairs and told everyone I pushed her, even though I had been in the library with Grandma. Every time, my family chose Lila. Lila was fragile. Lila was sensitive. Lila did not mean harm. Lila had anxiety. Lila needed support. Lila had already suffered enough because I was so cold. I learned early that in my family, a tear was stronger than a fact. Grandma had learned it too. Mr. Pierce placed 7 small envelopes on the table. Each envelope had a name. Charles, Vivian, Nathan, Lila, Mara, Mrs. Bell, the housekeeper, and Dr. Roland Hayes, Grandma's private physician. Father's face darkened. Why is the staff included? Because Mrs. Whitmore named Mrs. Bell as a household beneficiary and witness. Mother's voice sharpened. A servant is inheriting? I looked at her then. So did Mr. Pierce, he said, very calmly. Mrs. Bell worked for your mother-in-law for 34 years. Mother looked away first. Mr. Pierce slid the envelope with my name across the table. It stopped in front of me. Mara! Grandma's handwriting. My throat tightened. I did not open it immediately. Lila opened hers first. Of course she did. She unfolded the paper, read 2 lines, and went white. Mother leaned toward her. Darling. Lila shook her head quickly. It is nothing. That was when I knew Grandma had not left us a will. She had left us a trap. Father opened his envelope next. His jaw tightened. Mother read hers and pressed one hand to her mouth. Nathan swore under his breath. Finally, I opened mine. Inside was 1 page. My dearest Mara, they will smile when they think 30 days is a delay. Let them. Greedy people are patient only when they believe patience will pay them. You must not accuse them on the first day. Do not chase the truth. Make a room for it, and it will come in on its own feet. The blue ledger is in the east wall. Trust no apology before day 30. With all my love. Grandma. I read the letter twice. The blue ledger. The east wall. When I looked up, Lila was watching me. Her eyes were still wet, but not soft anymore. For 1 second, the sister my family protected disappeared, and I saw the person Grandma must have seen. Someone calculating, someone afraid, someone who already knew 30 days was too long to hide everything. Father cleared his throat. "This is ridiculous," he said. "We will contest it." Mr. Pierce closed the folder. "You may, however, while a contest is pending, all trust distributions freeze. All board voting rights remain with the temporary trustee, and Ashbourne House remains under estate protection." Mrs. Whitmore anticipated that response. Nathan laughed without humor. Of course she did. Father's eyes moved to me. I knew that look. He was already searching for the weakest point in the room. "Mara," he said, voice softening, "your grandmother trusted you. You can help us avoid a scandal." There it was. The first attempt, not even 10 minutes after the will was read. I folded Grandma's letter and placed it back in the envelope. How? Mother leaned forward eagerly, mistaking my calm for obedience. "We can all agree that this 30-day arrangement is unnecessary. You can tell Mr. Pierce that Grandma was upset, that she exaggerated family conflicts, that none of this is needed." And why would I do that? Lila's eyes filled again. "Because if this becomes public, everyone will suffer." I looked at my sister. For years, everyone meant Lila. This time, I smiled. "Then let us be careful for 30 days. Part 2. The first night in Ashbourne House. Ashbourne House had never felt like a home to me. It was too large, too cold, too full of portraits of people who seemed disappointed that anyone still alive had been allowed to touch the furniture. My father loved the house because it announced old money before he entered a room. My mother loved it because guests whispered over the marble staircase. Nathan loved it because someday he expected to sell parts of the land to expand his investment fund. Lila loved it because everyone had always told her it would be hers. I loved only 2 rooms. Grandma's sewing room, which smelled of lavender and old paper, and the small East Library, where the morning light came through green glass and turned dust into gold. That first night, according to Grandma's conditions, every named beneficiary had to sleep under the Ashbourne roof. Mr. Pierce had arranged security at the gates and placed estate representatives in the West office. Father called it insulting. Mr. Pierce called it compliance. At dinner, the family performed normality like a badly rehearsed play. Mother ordered soup no one wanted. Father discussed weather. Nathan complained about signal strength. Lila sat with her cardigan pulled around her shoulders, looking wounded enough to make the silverware feel guilty. I ate quietly. That made them nervous. Mother finally put down her spoon. "Mara, you have barely spoken." "I am listening." Nathan snorted. "That is new." "No," I said. "That is why you dislike me." The spoon in Lila's hand clicked against her bowl. Father's voice turned warning soft. "We agreed not to start." I did not agree to anything. Mother drew in a breath. "Your grandmother's will has upset everyone. We should be kind to one another." I looked at her. Kind? She flinched, though I had not raised my voice. Perhaps she remembered. As I did, the day I came home from my final university interview and found Lila sobbing on the sitting room floor. She had told everyone I had stolen her portfolio. The truth was that Lila had copied mine. changed the cover page, and forgotten to remove my initials from 3 project drafts. I showed them the original files. Nathan said timestamps could be faked. Mother said Lila was under pressure. Father said I should not humiliate my sister over one misunderstanding. The university withdrew both interviews. Lila took a gap year in Paris. I took a job cataloging invoices in one of Father's warehouses. Kindness, in my family, had always been the blanket they threw over the person bleeding, so guests would not see the stain. Lila's voice trembled. Mara, I know you think everyone chose me too often. I turned to her. Did they? Her eyes grew shiny. I was young. I did not know how to stop it. Nathan leaned back. Careful, Lila. She is recording everything in her head for the lawyer. No, I said. Grandma already handled the recordings. The table went still. Father looked toward the ceiling, then the corners of the room. I smiled faintly. Not necessarily here. That was enough. For the rest of dinner, no one spoke above a murmur. Afterward, I went to the East Library. Grandma's letter said the blue ledger was in the east wall. The library had 3 east walls if you counted the alcove, which Grandma absolutely would have counted because she enjoyed making lazy people suffer. I began with the shelves. Most people think old houses hide secrets behind paintings or under loose floorboards. Grandma preferred practical hiding places. She once kept emergency cash inside a hollow curtain rod because, as she said, thieves look for safes and children look for cookies. But no one respects curtains. The East Library shelves were filled with old atlases, gardening books, estate maps, and ledgers no one had touched in years. I pulled each blue spine I could find. Botanical watercolors of the South Coast, blue ports and shipping routes, A History of Whitmore Holdings, Volume 2. Nothing. At 11, Mrs. Bell entered with tea. She was 63, with silver hair pinned in a knot, and hands that never shook even when the family shouted in public. Mother called her our housekeeper. Grandma called her the only adult in the building. Mrs. Bell set the tray on the reading table. You should eat something more than soup. Miss Mara, I am not hungry. Your grandmother used to say that before finishing half a tin of biscuits. I looked up. Mrs. Bell's face softened. She worried about you. Everyone said that after someone died, she worried. She loved you. She meant to call. The dead become generous because they cannot contradict anyone. But with Grandma, I believed it. Did she tell you about the blue ledger? I asked. Mrs. Bell did not answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the east alcove and touched the wood panel below the window. She told me you would find it if you stopped looking with your eyes. That sounded exactly like Grandma, which meant it was both meaningful and irritating. I stood beside Mrs. Bell and studied the panel. Dark oak, fine carving, a tiny blue flower at the corner of a vine. I pressed it. The panel clicked open. Inside was a narrow compartment, and inside that compartment was a blue leather ledger. My fingers went cold when I touched it. Mrs. Bell stepped back. I will leave you with your tea. Mrs. Bell. She paused. What did Grandma ask you to reveal? Her face changed then. Not guilt exactly, grief. The truth about the night Lila fell down the stairs? My hand tightened around the ledger. Lila's fall. The story that followed me for 9 years. I had been 15. Lila had been 13. There was a winter charity ball downstairs, and I had escaped to the library because my shoes hurt. 10 minutes later, someone screamed. Lila lay at the bottom of the west staircase. One arm twisted beneath her. tears streaming down her face. She said I pushed her. I said I had been in the library. No one believed me. Not even when Grandma said she had seen me there. Father called Grandma confused. Mother slapped me. Nathan refused to speak to me for 2 months. Lila wore a cast and received bouquets from everyone we knew. I became the sister who could not be trusted near stairs. Mrs. Bell looked toward the door. Your grandmother had a camera facing the west staircase because Mr. Nathan had been sneaking out through that corridor. The footage showed you were nowhere near Miss Lila. My voice came out thin. Then why did no one say that? Mrs. Bell closed her eyes. Mrs. Whitmore tried. Your father ordered the footage deleted. Your grandmother kept a copy. And you knew? I knew there was footage. I did not see it until much later. But you knew enough. She bowed her head. Yes. There it was. A small truth, ugly and late. The old Mara would have wanted comfort from it. The new one understood that truth arriving late does not become less true, but it does become less innocent. Will you write that in your disclosure? I asked. Yes. All of it? All of it. I nodded once. Then start there. After she left, I opened the blue ledger. The first page was in Grandma's handwriting. Day 1. They will try to make you doubt your own memory. Do not let them. Below that was a list. The staircase footage, the missing scholarship letter, the forged portfolio, the Lake Estate transfer, the medication change, the trust meeting minutes, the sealed envelope marked Lila. Each item had a date, a location, and a name. Not accusations. Coordinates. Grandma had not left me a weapon. She had left me a map. At midnight, someone slipped an envelope under my door. No knock. No footsteps lingering in the hallway. Just paper sliding over the carpet with the soft confidence of a family that had always preferred indirect cruelty. Inside was a single page titled, Family Unity Statement. It was beautifully written. That was how I knew Father had drafted it, or paid someone who understood his voice. The statement said Grandma's final wishes had created emotional confusion. It said the Whitmore family remained united. It said any past grievances between sisters were private matters being handled with compassion. It said no beneficiary intended to accuse another beneficiary of misconduct. At the bottom was a blank line for my signature. Mara Whitmore. I almost smiled. My family never changed the knife. They only polished the handle. In the morning, I brought the page to breakfast and placed it beside Father's coffee. You dropped something. Father's expression did not change, but Nathan looked up too quickly. Mother went pale. Lila stared at her plate. That was a draft, Father said. A draft sent under my door at midnight. I thought you might appreciate language that protects everyone. Everyone again. He set down his cup. Mara, if you insist on treating every gesture like an attack, reconciliation will become impossible. A family does not need a unity statement before breakfast. Mrs. Bell entered with toast at exactly the wrong or right moment, depending on whether you liked theater. Her eyes flicked to the paper, then to me. Should I ask Mr. Pierce to collect that for the estate record? She asked. Father's face tightened. I slid the paper toward her. Please. Mrs. Bell took it with the same dignity she used to carry silver trays. For the rest of breakfast, no one mentioned unity again. Part 3. The sister who cried first. By day 3, Lila stopped pretending she was not afraid. She did not say she was afraid. Of course, Lila never admitted fear when a performance would do. Instead, she appeared at my bedroom door with 2 cups of coffee and the expression of someone visiting a patient. Can we talk? She asked. I looked at the coffee. Is one of those for me? You still drink it with no sugar, right? I stopped drinking coffee 2 years ago. Her face flickered. It was a small thing, almost nothing. But that was how our sisterhood worked. Lila remembered the details that were useful for a scene and forgot the ones that required care. Tea, then, she said quickly. I can make tea. What do you want, Lila? She stepped into the room without waiting to be invited. My room at Ashbourne had once been called the Blue Guest Room, even though I stayed there every summer for half my childhood. Lila had the Rose Room beside our parents'. Nathan had the West Suite. I had the room where visiting cousins put their luggage. Grandma changed the brass nameplate on my door when I turned 16. Mara. Mother removed it the next morning, saying it looked childish. Now the outline remained on the wood, faint and rectangular. Lila saw me looking at it. I never told Mother to take that down. I did not ask. She sat on the edge of the chair near the window. You are angry. Observant. Mara. There it was. The soft voice. The wet eyes. The invitation for me to become cruel first. I folded the sweater in my hands and placed it in the drawer. If you came to apologize, apologize. If you came to negotiate, be honest. Her mouth opened, then closed. I want us to survive this. Us? The family. The family survived when I lost my university interview. She flinched. I said I was sorry about that. No, you said it got out of hand. I was scared. I almost laughed. If Lila ever wrote a memoir, that would be the title. I was scared. Scared when she told everyone I pushed her. Scared when she copied my portfolio. Scared when my scholarship letter vanished. Scared when Grandma's necklace appeared in her jewelry box. Scared when she cried into Mother's lap and let the whole house turn on me. Of what? I asked. Her fingers twisted together. Of losing them. So you helped them lose me. She looked down. You were always stronger. I stared at her. That was the most insulting sentence people said to the person they had hurt. You were stronger. As if strength were a bag someone handed you at birth. As if I had not built mine from every room where no one defended me. As if being able to survive loneliness meant I deserved more of it. No, I said. I was less protected. Lila's tears finally fell. At another time, in another version of my life. That would have been the end of the conversation. The door would open. Mother would rush in. Father would ask what I had said. Nathan would call me heartless. Lila would tremble. And the whole house would rearrange itself around her tears. This time, no one came. Grandma's 30-day will had done something no lecture, no argument, no evidence had ever done. It had made everyone afraid to interrupt. Lila wiped her face. What was in your envelope? Advice. About me? About patience. Her eyes sharpened despite the tears. You have something. I have many things. Mara, please. Her voice dropped. If Grandma left you proof, you need to understand what will happen if you use it. Father will never forgive you. He has not forgiven me for things I did not do. I can survive him not forgiving me for the truth. Mother will break. Mother has bent every fact in this family to protect you. She is more flexible than she looks. Lila stood. You are enjoying this? I looked at her for a long moment. No, that is the difference between us. She went still. What is that supposed to mean? You enjoyed being chosen. I am simply finished being sacrificed. Her face hardened. For the first time in days, she looked less like the sister everyone defended, and more like the sister Grandma must have written about. Be careful, she said. I smiled. That sounds like a threat. It is advice. Then put it in writing. Grandma liked documentation. Lila left without another word. That afternoon, the first disclosure meeting took place in the West office. Under Grandma's rules, every named beneficiary had to give a private statement to Mr. Pierce before day 10, then a second sworn statement before day 25. Any contradiction between the two would be treated as evidence of concealment. Nathan went first. He came out furious. "This is insane," he said, slamming the office door behind him. "She is dead and still cross-examining us." Father went next. He stayed inside for 40 minutes when he emerged. His face was expressionless. Mother went in with a handkerchief. She came out without it. Lila went last. She took 2 hours. When she came out, she did not look at me. That was when Mr. Pierce called my name. The West office had been transformed into something between a legal archive and a confession room. 2 cameras stood in opposite corners. A scanner sat on the side table. A digital recorder blinked beside a pitcher of water. Mr. Pierce gestured toward the chair. "Miss Whitmore." I sat. "Your grandmother instructed me to ask whether you have opened the blue ledger." "Yes." "Have you located the first item?" "Not yet." He opened a folder and slid a photograph toward me. It showed the west staircase on the night of Lila's fall. The timestamp read 9:42 p.m. Lila stood alone at the top of the stairs. No one was near her. Her hands gripped the banister. Her face was turned toward the ballroom below. Then, in the next, still, she lowered herself to sit on the top step. In the next, she pushed one vase with her foot. In the next, she slipped down 5 steps and began to scream. Not a fall. A performance. My lungs forgot how to work. For 9 years, I had carried that staircase inside my body. Every family gathering, every whispered warning, every time someone said, maybe Mara should not stand behind Lila. Every time Mother watched me enter a room as if checking my hands for violence. 9 years. Mr. Pierce's voice was gentle. Mrs. Whitmore preserved the footage. Who else has seen this? Your grandmother, Mrs. Bell, myself, and as of this morning, Lila. I looked up. You showed her? Her first disclosure contradicted the footage. Under the will conditions, I was required to give her an opportunity to amend. Did she? Mr. Pierce did not answer immediately. That was answer enough. I looked back at the photograph. My sister sitting at the top of the stairs, preparing to fall just far enough to make me guilty. My hands were steady when I picked it up. That surprised me. What did Grandma want me to do with this? Use it when you are ready. Not now. Mr. Pierce's expression did not change. Her exact instruction was, do not spend the first proof on the first wound. I closed my eyes. Grandma knew me too well. She knew I would want to run into the hall, shove the photograph into my mother's hands, and demand the 9 years back. She also knew I would not get them. Truth can clear your name, but it cannot refund a childhood. I placed the photo back on the table. Then we wait. Mr. Pierce nodded once. That is what she hoped you would say. Before I left, he opened another folder. There is one more matter you should know before day 15. He slid a copy of an email across the desk. The sender was Dr. Roland Hayes. The recipient was my father. The subject line read, cognitive concerns? My stomach tightened. Grandma had been sharp until the week she died. Everyone outside the house knew it. She remembered birthdays, stock prices, family scandals from 1978, and which gardener overwatered the hydrangeas. But inside the family, Father had slowly begun calling her confused. At dinner, he corrected dates she had not gotten wrong. In meetings, he explained documents she had already read. When she objected, Mother said, "Eleanor, please do not upset yourself." Eventually, Nathan began attending board briefings in her place. I read the email. Dr. Hayes wrote that Mrs. Whitmore was alert, oriented, and capable of making independent legal and financial decisions. He advised against increasing her sedative medication and recommended a second opinion if the family believed otherwise. Below that was Father's reply. "We need language that supports temporary transfer of decision-making authority. Please revise." Mr. Pierce gave me the second page. The revised letter said, Grandma showed signs of cognitive decline and should reduce involvement in complex business matters. Same doctor, same week. Different truth. Why would Dr. Hayes do that? I asked. Your grandmother believed he was pressured through a research donation. Of course. In the Whitmore family, money did not always buy lies directly. Sometimes it sponsored them. Is he coming on day 30? He is required to attend. I looked at the two letters. One honest, one useful. For the first time that day, I understood why Grandma had included Dr. Hayes as a named participant. She did not only want the family exposed, she wanted every professional who helped them learn that paperwork could cut both ways. Part 4, Day 15, the house began to talk. By the middle of the 30 days, Ashbourne House no longer felt quiet. It hummed. Not with voices, exactly, with pressure. Everyone in the house began moving differently. Father stopped taking calls in the dining room. Mother stopped inviting Lila into her bedroom at night. Nathan started locking his laptop even when he went to pour coffee. Lila no longer cried in public unless someone important was watching, which told me she understood the audience had changed. The house itself seemed to be waiting. On day 15, Grandma's will required a family inventory. Every named beneficiary had to be present while Mr. Pierce's team cataloged jewelry, artwork, private documents, and personal items belonging to Grandma's estate. Father called it unnecessary. Mother called it vulgar. Nathan called it a waste of billable hours. Even though no one was billing him, I called it Thursday. The inventory began in Grandma's dressing room. Mother stood near the door, pale with irritation. Eleanor gave many of these pieces away while she was alive. Mr. Pierce made a note. Then the gift records should reflect that. Lila touched the small diamond pendant at her throat. I recognized it immediately. Grandma had promised it to me after my first solo violin recital. I never received it. Mother told me Grandma had misplaced it. Later, I saw it in Lila's jewelry box, and when I asked, Lila said Mother had given it to her for courage before exams. At the time, I was 17 and tired of being called jealous. So I said nothing. Now, Mr. Pierce looked at the pendant. Miss Lila, that necklace appears on Mrs. Whitmore's untransferred inventory. Lila's fingers covered it. Grandma gave it to me. Do you have the gift card? No. Mother stepped forward. I remember Eleanor giving it to her. When? Mother's lips pressed together. Years ago. Which year? I do not remember. Mr. Pierce glanced at his assistant. Please photograph the item. Lila's eyes widened. You want me to take it off now? It is estate property until transfer is verified. The room went very still. Lila looked at Mother. Mother looked at Father. Father looked at Mr. Pierce and realized, perhaps for the first time, that no one in this room was asking his permission. Slowly, Lila unclasped the necklace. Her hands shook. I felt nothing dramatic. No triumph. No surge of satisfaction. Just a quiet click inside me. Like a small door. Closing. One stolen thing returned. The inventory continued. Bracelets. Rings. Pearl combs. Letters. 2 paintings removed from Grandma's sitting room without paperwork. 3 antique watches found in Nathan's private safe. A folder of medical invoices marked confidential. Then came the locked cedar chest. Mother said she did not have the key. Mrs. Bell said Grandma had given the key to Mr. Pierce. Mother's face changed. That was enough to make everyone watch more closely. Mr. Pierce opened the chest. Inside were 7 envelopes tied with blue ribbon. Each one had a date. The first was the night Lila fell. The second was the scholarship letter. The third was the portfolio. The fourth was the missing Lake Estate transfer. The fifth was Dr. Hayes's medication report. The sixth was a private board memo. The seventh was labeled Day 30. Father said, "We are done here." Mr. Pierce looked at him. "No, Mr. Whitmore, we are beginning." That evening, Nathan came to the East Library. He did not knock. Nathan had never knocked on my doors. Childhood habit, he used to say, as if disrespect became charming when it was old enough. I was reading the blue ledger at the table. He closed the door behind him. "What do you want?" "You came to me. Do not play innocent. I learned from the best." His mouth tightened. Nathan was 32, brilliant with numbers, brutal with weaknesses, and deeply offended by anyone who remembered his mistakes. He had always treated me like a bad investment, unfortunate, irritating, and best written off quietly. "If you keep pushing this, the company will suffer," he said. "The company survived you hiding 3 watches in your safe. Those were gifts. Everything stolen becomes a gift when the thief explains it." He stepped closer. Grandma did not understand the company at the end. Father and I kept it alive. By removing her voting reports? His face went still. There it was. The first real hit. The blue ledger had led me to a missing board memo from 3 years earlier. Grandma had objected to Nathan's proposed investment fund because it moved company reserves into a structure he controlled. After that, Grandma's meeting packet stopped reaching her on time. Someone signed receipt slips in her name. Nathan said, "You do not know what you are talking about. Then disclose everything, and the documents will prove you right." He laughed once. "You always were smug." "No, I was usually correct." That made everyone uncomfortable. For a second, he looked like he wanted to say something cruel enough to end the conversation. Instead, he looked toward the wall. For cameras. The search saved him from himself. He lowered his voice. "Lila is not the only one who can cry. Mara, be careful how lonely you make yourself." I closed the ledger. "I was lonely before I had power. You should worry about what I can do with both." He left quietly. That was how I knew he was afraid. Nathan only slammed doors when he thought he was winning. On day 17, the scholarship letter surfaced. Not in Mother's desk, where Grandma's ledger said it had been hidden. In Lila's piano bench. Mrs. Bell found it during inventory, tucked inside a sheet music folder labeled Chopin. The envelope had been opened. My name was printed clearly across the top. Mara Whitmore. Full merit scholarship. Summer Academy of Applied Music. The program that might have changed everything. I remembered that year. I had applied in secret because Father thought music was a hobby, and Mother thought serious girls did not run off to summer programs without family supervision. When no answer came, I assumed I had failed. Lila left for a European arts tour that summer. Mother told everyone how talented she was. Inside the envelope was a second paper, a withdrawal form, signed with my name. Not by me. My hands went numb. Mother looked at the page and whispered, I turned to her. You thought what? She swallowed. Lila said you changed your mind. I looked at Lila. She stared at the floor. For once, no tears came. Perhaps even she understood there were not enough tears in the world to make a forged signature look like love. The next item was worse. The medical invoices? Mr. Pierce spread them across the table in chronological order, each page marked with colored tabs. Doctor. Hayes was present by video call, looking smaller on the screen than he had ever looked in person. I remembered him as a confident man with silver hair and a doctor's smooth authority. He had once told me not to upset Grandma because stress accelerates decline. Now he would not meet the camera. Mr. Pierce lifted the first report. Dr. Hayes. This letter states that Mrs. Whitmore showed signs of cognitive decline and should step back from business decisions. That was my professional impression at the time. Mr. Pierce lifted the second report. This letter, written 4 days earlier, states she was alert, oriented, and fully capable. The doctor's jaw shifted. A patient's condition can change. In 4 days? Yes. Then why did your prescription record from that week show no neurological event, no emergency visit, and no cognitive assessment? Father's voice cut in. This is not a medical hearing. Mr. Pierce turned to him. No, it is an estate compliance review regarding whether Mrs. Whitmore was intentionally misrepresented to alter control of her assets. The screen went quiet. Doctor. Hayes wiped his forehead. Mother whispered, Charles. Father did not look at her. Mr. Pierce asked, did Mr. Whitmore or anyone acting on behalf of Whitmore Holdings discuss a research donation with you before the revised letter was issued? Doctor. Hayes closed his eyes. That was the answer before the answer. Yes, he said. Mother made a small sound. Nathan looked furious, but not surprised. Father sat very still. I thought of Grandma sitting at this same table, being told she was confused by people who needed her power. I thought of every old woman whose sharpness became inconvenient the moment younger hands wanted the keys. My anger arrived quietly. That made it more dangerous. Mr. Pierce ended the call after scheduling Dr. Hayes for day 30 in person. When the screen went dark, Father stood. I did what was necessary to protect the company. I looked at him. From Grandma? From instability? She was not unstable. She was in your way. For once, no one corrected me. Not even Mother. Part 5. Grandma's Day. 30 Banquet. On day 20, Father stopped trying to cancel the will and started trying to control the ending. He called it a family meeting. That meant he wanted witnesses who already agreed with him. We gathered in the dining room after breakfast. Mother sat beside Lila again, but not as closely as before. Nathan stood near the sideboard. Mr. Pierce sat at the far end with a notebook. Mrs. Belle stood by the door because Grandma's will required her presence at any meeting regarding household disclosures. Father did not like that. He liked it less when Mr. Pierce turned on the recorder. This family has been through enough, Father began. No one answered. He continued. Mistakes were made. Misunderstandings happened. Mother, in her final months, gathered incidents that may look damaging without context. But if we drag every private matter into public review, We risked destroying not only ourselves, but the company, the foundation, and the livelihoods attached to our name. It was a good speech. Father was excellent when he could make self-interest sound like civic duty. Then he looked at me. Mara, your grandmother clearly intended you to have influence. We accept that. I am prepared to recommend you for a formal role in the foundation. A generous independent settlement can also be arranged. You will have your own apartment, your own income, and the public recognition you have always wanted. There it was again. The family habit of offering me a smaller version of what was already mine. In exchange for what? I asked. Mother's eyes pleaded with me. Father folded his hands. In exchange for a unified statement on day 30. We acknowledge family tensions. You acknowledge that many incidents were misunderstood. We avoid naming individuals. We protect everyone. I looked at Lila. Everyone? Her face was pale. Father said, yes. And the forged withdrawal form? His jaw tightened. That can be handled privately. The staircase footage? Mother flinched. Mara, please. The altered board receipts? Nathan muttered something under his breath. The medication invoices? Father's eyes hardened. You are making enemies you do not understand. I smiled a little. No, Father. I finally understand them. Mister, Pierce made a note. Father noticed. Must you write down everything? Mrs. Whitmore required meeting minutes. My mother is dead. The words cracked through the room. For the first time, I saw it. Not grief, not anger, but resentment. Father was furious that Grandma could still limit him from the grave. He had spent his life waiting to become the oldest power in the family, and she had died without handing him the crown. I said, she planned well for a dead woman. Nathan almost smiled, then remembered he was also trapped. Father ended the meeting. That afternoon, I found Lila in Grandma's garden. She sat on the stone bench beneath the magnolia tree, wrapped in a pale shawl, though the day was warm. Her hair was loose, without makeup. She looked younger and more tired. For a moment, I could see the girl she had been before the family taught her that tears were currency. Father wants me to apologize publicly, she said. I stood beside the path. Do you plan to? If I do, everyone will hate me. Everyone already hated me for what you did. She closed her eyes. I know. 2 words. Small, late, not enough. But true. I sat at the other end of the bench. Lila looked surprised. For a while, neither of us spoke. The magnolia leaves moved in the wind. Somewhere near the fountain, Mrs. Bell was telling a gardener not to cut the roses too short because Mrs. Eleanor hated bald rose bushes. Finally, Lila said, the stairs were supposed to be small. I looked at her. She stared at her hands. I did not mean to break my arm. I only wanted Mother to see that you were angry with me. I thought if they were disappointed in you for a few days, they would stop talking about sending me back to Aunt Claire. They were going to send you away? Mother said, maybe I needed space. Father said, you and I fought too much. Her mouth twisted. I heard them through the door. I thought if I got hurt, they would keep me. So you made them think I hurt you? Yes. There it was. No performance, no excuse dressed as fragility. Just the ugly little bone of the truth. And the scholarship? Her voice became smaller. I wanted that summer program. You were already going to Europe. Because Mother chose it, the academy chose you. I almost said, so you took it. But I did not need to. The sentence was already sitting between us. Lila wiped her face with the heel of her hand. I hated that you could be loved by Grandma without trying. That one struck deeper than I expected. Because I had tried. I had tried so hard to be loved by everyone else that I had not recognized Grandma's love as shelter until it was gone. I did try. I said, Lila looked at me. You just did not see it because I was trying with people who had already chosen you. She began to cry then, but quietly. Not the polished tears she used at dinner tables. These were uglier, less useful. Maybe that made them closer to real. What do you want me to do? She asked. Tell the truth on day 30. In front of everyone? Yes. Will you forgive me if I do? I stood. Do not make your honesty another thing you want me to pay for. Her face crumpled. I left her in the garden. Grandma's day 30 instruction arrived that evening. Mr. Pierce called us all into the library and opened the 7th envelope from the cedar chest. Inside was one card. On the 30th day, hold dinner in the long hall. Invite the family board, the foundation trustees, Dr. Hayes, Mrs. Bell, and all named beneficiaries. At dinner, each person must answer one question. What did you take, and from whom? Father stood before Mr. Pierce finished reading. Absolutely not. Mr. Pierce placed the card on the table. Refusal triggers forfeiture. Nathan cursed. Mother began to cry. Lila looked at me. For once, I could not read her expression. Maybe she was afraid. Maybe she was tired. Maybe 30 days was finally long enough for her to understand that being chosen by a dishonest family did not make her safe. The days before the banquet were the longest of my life. Not because I was unsure, because everyone else finally was. Father stopped speaking to me unless Mr. Pierce was present. Mother tried twice to knock on my bedroom door and left both times before I answered. Nathan spent hours in the West office with his own attorney. Learning that Grandma's conditions were irritatingly legal, Lila stopped wearing jewelry altogether. On day 27, I found her in the music room. The grand piano stood open. Dust marked the keys because no one had played since Grandma's memorial. Lila sat on the bench with my old scholarship letter unfolded beside her. I went to the Summer Academy website, she said. I stayed by the door. Why? I wanted to see what I took. That was the first time she used that word without being forced. Took. Not borrowed. Not misunderstood. Not got by accident. And she looked at the keys. You would have loved it. The sentence was soft, but it hit hard. I had imagined that summer so many times when I was 17. Practice rooms with real acoustics. Teachers who cared about technique instead of family reputation. Students who would know me by sound before surname. A month where I might have belonged somewhere without competing against Lila's tears. Yes, I said, I would have. She flinched. I cannot give it back. No. I know. For once, she did not ask what she could do to make me stop being hurt. That was progress, maybe. Or maybe it was simply exhaustion wearing honesty's coat. I left her there with the letter. She did not play. Neither did I. Part 6, what they took and from whom. The day 30 dinner looked beautiful. That was the Whitmore way. Even judgment had to be served under chandeliers. The long hall glittered with candlelight. White flowers ran down the center of the table. Crystal glasses caught the gold from the wall sconces. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. The same sound that had filled so many of my loneliest nights in that house. This time, I did not sit at the far end. Mr. Pierce had placed name cards according to Grandma's instructions. Father sat on the left side, not the head. Mother sat across from him. Nathan sat beside the foundation trustee he had once tried to bypass. Lila sat beside Mrs. Bell, and I sat at the head of the table beneath Grandma's portrait. No one commented. That was how I knew they had all noticed. Mr. Pierce stood after the first course was cleared. Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore required tonight's disclosures to be spoken aloud and entered into the estate record. Each person will answer the question written in her hand. He unfolded the card. What did you take and from whom? The silence that followed felt alive. Before anyone answered, Mr. Pierce dimmed the lights. Father turned sharply. What are you doing? Mrs. Whitmore requested that corroborating materials be displayed as needed. A screen lowered from the far wall, hidden for years behind one of the old hunting tapestries. I had never known it was there. Grandma, apparently, had looked at a formal dining hall and thought, this room needs projection equipment for judgment. Despite everything, I almost smiled. The first image appeared, the west staircase. Lila at the top. The vase. The careful lowering of her body. The staged fall. Mother covered her mouth. Father closed his eyes. Nathan muttered a curse. Lila did not look away. That, more than anything, told me she had decided something before entering the room. The second image appeared. My scholarship letter. The forged withdrawal form. The signature comparison. The third showed Grandma's original medical report beside the revised one. The fourth showed board receipt slips signed under Grandma's office code. The fifth showed the inventory list of jewelry transferred without documentation. One by one, the room filled with the shape of what had been taken. Not vague pain. Not family tension. Evidence. When the lights came back up, even Father looked older. Father went first because he could not bear not controlling the order. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and looked at the trustees rather than at me. I authorized certain estate decisions that, in hindsight, should have been discussed more openly. Mr. Pierce said, that is not an answer. Father's face hardened. I took temporary control of voting materials from my mother during a period when I believed her judgment was compromised. From whom? Mr. Pierce asked. Father's jaw worked. From my mother, and indirectly from Mara. It was not enough. It was not remorse. But it was on record. Mother went next. She cried before she spoke, which surprised no one. I took peace, she whispered. Mr. Pierce waited. Mother looked at me for the first time that night. I took peace from Mara because it was easier to comfort Lila than confront her. I took jewelry Eleanor intended for Mara and gave it to Lila. I opened letters that were not mine. I told myself I was holding the family together. Her voice broke. I was holding the wrong person. Lila closed her eyes. Nathan stood next. He did not cry. Nathan would rather donate a kidney than cry in front of trustees. I took board access from grandmother by intercepting meeting packets. I took company opportunities by using family authority before it was legally mine. I signed receipt confirmations under her office code. Mr. Pierce asked, from whom? Nathan looked at Grandma's portrait. From her, from the trust, from Mara. Then came Mrs. Bell. She stood very straight. I took silence. She said, from Miss Mara. I knew there was footage that could clear her after Miss Lila's fall. I did not fight hard enough to make it seen. My throat tightened. Mrs. Bell turned to me. I am sorry. For once, an apology did not arrive dressed as a request. I nodded. Then Lila stood. Her hands shook, but she stood. I took my sister's place, she said. No one moved. Lila looked down at the table. Not once. many times. I took her place in our parents' sympathy. I took her necklace. I took her scholarship letter. I forged her withdrawal because I wanted the academy that chose her. I lied about the stairs because I was afraid of being sent away. I let everyone believe she hurt me. Mother made a small, wounded sound. Lila did not look at her. I took years from Mara. I took the version of her our family might have known if I had not made everyone afraid of her. The room was silent. Then she turned to me. I am sorry. Not because Grandma caught me, not because the will trapped us, because I did it. It was the apology I had once dreamed of. It did not heal me the way I thought it would. That was the strange thing about getting what you needed too late. It could still matter. It could still be true. But it could not go back in time and sit beside the girl crying alone after the staircase. It could not reopen the summer academy. It could not make my mother believe me when belief would have saved me. Mr. Pierce looked at me. Miss Mara, your disclosure. I stood. Everyone watched. For most of my life, the family had made me the accused. Tonight, Grandma made me the witness. I took notes, I said. Nathan frowned. I continued. I took every insult seriously when people told me to let it go. I took copies of emails after learning originals disappear. I took Grandma's advice when she told me silence can be a strategy, not a surrender. I looked around the table, and I took back my name. No one spoke. Mr. Pierce opened the final folder. Under the terms of Mrs. Whitmore's will, the trustee has reviewed the disclosures, documents, and corroborating evidence. The following distributions are now active. Father closed his eyes. Mother gripped her napkin. Nathan stared at the table. Lila looked relieved and terrified at once. Dr. Hayes was not a family member, but Grandma had named him for a separate disclosure. He stood after Lila, hands clasped in front of him like a student waiting outside the principal's office. I revised a medical letter under pressure from Charles Whitmore and after discussion of a research donation connected to Whitmore Holdings. He said, the revised letter overstated concerns I did not clinically verify. It contributed to Mrs. Whitmore being excluded from business decisions. Father's face went dark. Mr. Pierce asked, from whom did you take? Doctor. Hayes swallowed. From Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore. Her autonomy. Her credibility. He glanced at me. And from Miss Mara Whitmore, because the same false narrative helped undermine Mrs. Whitmore's attempts to protect her. I did not thank him. Some truth should be spoken without applause. Mrs. Bell's disclosure had already been given privately, but Grandma required her to speak one sentence at dinner. She stood, smoothed her apron though she was not serving tonight, and looked directly at me. I took the comfort of silence when courage was owed. That one sentence did what longer apologies had failed to do. It did not ask me to forgive her. It named the debt. I nodded. Mr. Pierce read, Father forfeited control of the voting shares and any trustee role. Mother forfeited discretionary access to Grandma's jewelry and personal accounts. Nathan forfeited his claim to board appointment for 7 years, pending independent review. Lila forfeited direct inheritance from Grandma's personal estate, except for an education fund administered by a third party and not controlled by the family. Mrs. Bell received the cottage on the South Road and a lifetime pension. And I, Mara Eleanor Whitmore, received Ashbourne House, the Lake Estate, controlling oversight of the Eleanor Whitmore Foundation, and authority to appoint independent trustees to Whitmore Holdings. For a moment, I heard nothing but rain. Then Father said, "You cannot manage all that." I looked at him. "No, but unlike you. I know the difference between ownership and competence. I will hire competence." One of the trustees coughed into his napkin. Nathan looked almost impressed. Father did not, Mother whispered. Mara, please do not shut us out completely. I looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I did not feel like a child asking to be chosen. You may write to me through Mr. Pierce for the next 90 days. After that, I will decide what kind of contact I want. I am your mother. Then you had more time than anyone to act like it. Lila flinched as if the words struck her too. Maybe they did. Good. Some truths should echo. After dinner, I went to the East Library. Lila followed me. I heard her pause at the doorway. Can I come in? It was the first time I could remember her asking before entering a room I occupied. Yes. She stepped inside and looked around the library. At the shelves. The green glass. The table where Grandma had left me a map back to myself. I used to hate this room, she said. Why? Because Grandma always seemed to know when I lied in here. She knew everywhere. Lila gave a small broken laugh. Yes, but here, I could feel it. She stood across from me. No tears, no audience. I meant what I said. I know. That does not mean you have to forgive me. I know that too. For a moment, we only looked at each other. Sisters. Technically, strangers. Honestly, survivors of the same family in entirely different ways. She said, "What happens now?" Now you live with what you told the truth about. And you? I touched the blue ledger. I live without having to prove I was hurt. She nodded slowly. Then she left. The room felt lighter after she was gone. Not because we were repaired. Because one performance had ended. The blue ledger lay on the table, open to the last page. Grandma had written one final note. Day 30. If they tell the truth only because they must. Believe the truth, not the performance. I ran my fingers over the ink. Then I closed the ledger. Part 7, a house with my name on the door. The morning after day 30, Ashbourne House was quieter than I had ever known it. Not empty. Changed. Father left before breakfast with 2 suitcases and a face like carved stone. He did not say goodbye. Nathan left an hour later, pausing only to tell me that if I needed help understanding the company, I should ask before I ruined something expensive. I will, I said. He looked surprised. Really? Yes, I will ask people qualified to help. Mrs. Bell made a sound suspiciously close to a cough. Nathan left without another word. Mother stayed until noon. She moved through the sitting room, touching things that no longer belonged to her. A porcelain vase, a photograph frame, the back of Grandma's favorite chair. For a moment, I saw not the woman who had failed me, but the daughter who had lost her mother and discovered too late that grief did not erase guilt. At the door, she turned. I did love you, she said. I wanted that sentence once. I had wanted it so badly that I accepted scraps and called them proof. A hand on my forehead when I had a fever. A compliment on a dress before Lila entered the room. A birthday card signed by an assistant but chosen. Maybe by Mother. I had built whole little shelters from almost love. Now the sentence arrived standing beside 30 days of evidence. Maybe, I said. Her eyes filled. That is all you can say? For now. She nodded slowly, as if the word hurt more because it was fair. Then she left. Lila was the last family member in the house. I found her in the Rose Room, packing the last of her clothes into 2 white suitcases. The room looked strange without her things. Less soft, less theatrical. The education fund is more than I deserve, she said without turning. Yes. She laughed once. It was not a happy sound. You do not soften anything. I used to. It did not help me. She folded a sweater. I am going to accept it. The fund, Mr. Pierce said it can cover school if I choose a program and attend therapy. That sounds practical. Do you hate me? I thought about lying. It would have been easier. Hate is simple. Hate gives a clean answer to a dirty history. Some days, I said. She nodded as if she deserved that. Do you think there will ever be days when you don't? I looked at the room where she had once brought friends to whisper about me. The room where Mother sat brushing her hair while I stood in the hallway holding proof no one wanted. The room where Lila learned that crying first could make her innocent. Maybe it was more than I expected to give. She turned then. I will not ask you to forgive me. Good. But if I ever become someone who can apologize without wanting anything back, I will write. Then I might read it. She picked up her suitcases. At the door, she paused. Grandma loved you best. The old wound stirred. No, I said, Grandma loved me honestly. Lila looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. I think that was what I envied. After she left, Mrs. Bell brought me tea in the East Library. For once, she did not tell me to eat. She set the tray down and placed something beside it. A brass nameplate. Mara. The one Mother removed from my bedroom door years ago. I stared at it. Where did you find this? Mrs. Eleanor kept it in her desk. Of course she did. Grandma kept everything that mattered. My voice came out softer than I meant. Will you help me put it back? Mrs. Bell smiled. I already brought the screwdriver. We went upstairs together. The blue guest room waited at the end of the hall. The outline of the old nameplate was still there. Faint but visible. Mrs. Bell held the brass plate in place while I turned the screws. My hand shook only once. When it was done, I stepped back. Mara, not guest, not problem, not difficult daughter, not the sister who should understand. Mara. That afternoon, I walked through Ashbourne House with a notebook and made my own inventory. Not of jewelry or paintings, of doors. The Rose Room would become a guest room again. No shrine to Lila, no punishment either. Just a room. Grandma's sewing room would stay as it was. The West office would become the foundation office. The East Library would be mine. The ballroom would host the first scholarship dinner in spring. But not the kind where rich people congratulated themselves for writing checks. I wanted girls from small towns. Girls who played violin with borrowed bows. Girls who kept acceptance letters under pillows because adults around them thought ambition was inconvenient. The Summer Academy received its first Whitmore Foundation grant 3 months later. The award letter template had a line at the bottom. No accepted student may be withdrawn by a parent, guardian, or sponsor without direct confirmation from the student. Mr. Pierce called that line unusually specific. I called it necessary. Father fought the will for 6 months and lost. Nathan cooperated with the independent review after discovering cooperation looked better than obstruction. Mother wrote 3 letters. I answered the 3rd. Lila entered a design program under her own name, not the Whitmore name, and sent no apology for the first year. Then one arrived. It was not dramatic, no perfume, no tear stains, no long defense of her fear. Just 2 pages. She wrote that therapy had taught her the difference between being loved and being protected from consequences. She wrote that she had confused attention with safety. She wrote that what she did to me was not a mistake made by a scared child, because she repeated it as an adult. The last line said, I took your place because I thought love was a chair with only 1 seat. I am sorry I made you stand. I read it twice. Then I placed it in the blue ledger. Not because it fixed anything, because it belonged with the truth. A year after day 30, the family board gathered at Ashbourne House for the foundation dinner. I wore a dark green dress, Grandma's pearl earrings, and no armor I could name. Mrs. Bell stood near the entrance, terrifying the caterers into competence. Mr. Pierce arrived with no folders for once, which made him look almost unemployed. Before dinner, I went upstairs to my room. The brass nameplate shone on the door. Mara. I touched it with 2 fingers. For years, my family chose my sister over me because choosing her was easier. She cried first. She asked less directly. She made their cruelty feel like protection. I kept asking for truth, and truth is an expensive guest in a house built on performance. Grandma knew that, so she gave them 30 days. Not to become good people, not to become a family, to become honest where the record could hear them. People say time reveals character. I disagree. Pressure reveals character. And Grandma's 30-day will apply just enough pressure for every locked door in Ashbourne House to open. That night, when I walked downstairs, no one asked why I sat at the head of the table. No one told me Lila needed the seat more. No one said I should be kind, patient, grateful, quiet, or careful. For the first time in my life, the room made space before I entered it. And I did not thank anyone for that space. I simply took it. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next story.